Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It is so greatly appreciated. Truly, truly is. So we're going back down the Reddit rabbit hole today with a story time that I've not read yet. So I am blind reacting to it for the first time with you guys. And I am a former drug mule for the Mexican cartel. I'm intrigued already. Hey Reddit, I was an active drug smuggler for a period of 6 months. I mostly operated within the States, but from time to time, I would smuggle from Mexico. During my time, I was caught a total of 3 times. First time by the DEA, second time by Border Patrol, and third time by the state police. You might be wondering how I'm not in prison. Well, it's kind of a long story. Deny everything. After the 6 months, I worked my way up the food chain. Instead of being the mule, my unofficial job was to recruit mules. I had the option to smuggle it myself, but I'd rather hire someone else and just give them a percentage of the sale. Going head to head with the feds is not something I want to do again. It was safer this way. I completely agree with you, by the way, with that. I would not want to go head to head with the feds either. But well, first of all, if you don't do illegal things, you don't have to go head to head with the feds. But more importantly, but you just make somebody else go head to head with the feds. Like that's even worse. Being able to provide proof on this was kind of tricky. It's not like I was put on a payroll. I did my best. The Moz will provide a statement. Anything outside of that, you'll have to take my word for it. These clients of mine were powerful people who would buy a lot frequently. I was the middleman between the cartel and clients. My very first sale, I sold 50,000 of product simply by introducing the two parties. Of course, I only made $1,000. Call it a finder's fee. I was lucky enough my clients would only speak to me to set up buys. So if I went down, then there goes a huge client. It was after this initial sale that I was strongly discouraged from smuggling. I originally wanted to represent myself as a low-level boss, but it's difficult providing viable proof for this line of work, so I went with the mule instead. A lot of you were asking for my best stories during my time. Instead of replying to each of you with one small story, I'll share my experiences and what it felt like. Okay. How and why did I get into this business? The city I live in is extremely corrupt. I'll be honest, I was living at home, working a minimum wage job, paying too much money a month for a decent car, a 2014 $25,000 car. I was struggling financially overall. I had a hunger for money and power, ultimately leading to find someone who could get me in a recruiter, if you will. There was one afternoon I went to the bar to enjoy my day off. Couple drinks in, I felt this unbearable pain in my stomach, nothing I've ever felt. I don't know why, but my first instinct was to call my girl best friend. Sure enough, she wasn't doing so good. She was crying and in a lot of emotional pain. Hearing her in that state hurt. I never wanted to hear her cry like that ever again, so I continued smuggling. I'd give her money to help her out, and because of me, she was able to pay down payment on a car. You're a really good friend. That is not a reason to continue doing this. I'm just gonna put it out there. What was it like the first time? I wasn't scared or nervous. I'm not really sure what I felt. I guess, if anything, I was excited because if it went well, then I was going to get $3,000 for 2 days. The job was to drive from point A to point B. My recruiter calls me once an hour to check up on my well being. My girl best friend would also check up on me every so often so I was okay mentally. I had to drive for X number of hours and it was exhausting. I didn't like to stop except for gas and energy drinks. When I finally arrived at my destination, I was put in a hotel room where I had to wait 10 hours. This hotel was in the middle of nowhere in a different state, so there was nothing to do. When the merchandise was finally unloaded from the vehicle, I immediately drove back home. I remember feeling happy and relieved. I turned in the car and got paid. What happened the first time you got caught by the DEA, and how did you walk away? So the job was to drive from point A to point B as usual. There were a total of four cars, one lead car, followed by me, a buyer behind me, and my bosses in the back. This job was delicate. This was the second time I introduced my buyers to my bosses. They had bought two bricks of the white stuff goes up your nose, but wanted it higher up north. So basically, they were paying me to transport it farther up north. The lead car was purposely speeding in case there was any cops. They pulled him over and not me. This was just an added precaution. I want to say a good 10 hours in, the two cars behind me started losing distance between me and the lead car. I call them and they're 2 hours away. I talk to the lead car and we make the decision to go anyways. Another 8 hours in, I pull over at a gas station, unexpectedly run into the lead car. He tells me the two backup cars are 4 hours away from us. He wants to go to a restaurant and wait for them, but I insist on driving forward without them. He agrees. Couple hours later, we finally arrive at our destination. Now, this is where the stupid luck comes in. There's two hotels right next to each other. My buyer wants me to stay at the same hotel as him. I think it was a let's have each other's back type of thing. I wanted him to go get a room, and then I walk across the street and get a room at the other hotel. At this point, it's about 10 o'clock at night, and I'm tired. I buy a case of beer and go to my room and wait for my boss. He arrives at the hotel at around 3 o'clock in the morning. Job well done, right? Not so fast. My buyers are only buying two bricks. The other bricks are being bought by my boss's clients. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, my boss tells me he's going to go meet his clients. He tells me to stay put with the car, and as soon as he calls me to head over there. 1 hour later, I still don't receive a call. So I decide to head over to the restaurant downstairs and grab a bite to eat. One of my clients joins me and we start talking about business. 30 minutes later, we finish and I walk back to my room. I insert my key card only to find it doesn't work. No big deal. I'll go to the front desk and have them give me a new one. Oh God. I walk into the lobby and immediately notice a police officer and a DEA agent. The DEA agent was wearing a Kevlar vest with DEA in gold on the back of it. They both turn and look at me, and I just keep my poker face and approach the front desk clerk. He gives me a new key card and I leave. Oh my God. I remained as calm as possible and started thinking how I'm going to get out of this one. I walk upstairs to my room and I look around. Across the street, I notice two SUVs parked in a way if shit went down, they were in position to respond immediately. I go with my gut feeling and ditch going inside the room. I walk around aimlessly to see if I was being followed, and sure enough, I notice a civilian car following me. I walk towards a business, and right before I walk in, the same car pulls up and the same DEA agent I saw earlier steps out. What's your name, kid? I don't have to answer that. What kind of car are you driving? Is it here? I'm not answering that. The agent starts getting frustrated and his partner gets off the vehicle and immediately makes me put my hands behind my back. Look, kid, we're investigating a car break-in and the suspect fits your profile. They called the DEA for a break-in? We're not DEA, we're city name police department. Those two unmarked SUVs are yours. Your firearm is in your waistband and you're driving a civilian car. Police department doesn't operate that way. What kind of training do you have? He tells him I'm a former cop. They take my ID out of my wallet and tell me to stay put. They say they're going to see if I have any warrants. After about 10 minutes, they hand me my ID and let me go. What? I take a bus back home and nobody knows what to think of it. The cartels started pointing fingers at everyone. They even suspected me of being an undercover DEA agent. It was later revealed my boss's ex ratted us out. To this day, we don't know what happened to my boss. We've tried looking for him in jail through online databases, but to no avail. Like, as in your boss went down for his ex-girlfriend ratting you guys out? My best theory as to what happened is this. The meeting between my boss and his client was a setup. The DEA thought he would have like stuff in his car and moved in. Once they realized he didn't have the stuff, they scrambled back to the hotel to try and salvage their operation. They ended up towing my car. My buyers went into hiding, and so did I. The DEA never went after me again for this ordeal. Update 2021. Well, I don't expect anyone to see this, but I went to prison for my crimes. Okay. So he comes back 3 years later. I'm I am here 3 years later now as a convict. I ended up being arrested by federal authorities for my crimes. I knew they were coming, and when they finally arrested me, I felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I spent time in federal prison, and here I am today ready to share my experiences. The main reason I am doing this is because I want to dissuade people from getting involved in this lifestyle. Well, that's very commendable of you. I have to say. When I logged into my account after 3 years, I had a lot of messages from my previous AMA asking me how to get involved in this line of business. Of course you did. Well, what the? Of course you did. I may have glamorized this line of business a little in I don't think that you did. Well, a little bit, but not. I wouldn't call you for a job recommendation. And I apologize. I was young and stupid. It wasn't worth it. I lost everything when I went to prison. I was shunned by my extended family. My friends abandoned me. The woman I loved left me. And worst of all, my dog died. My dog dying is what really hurt. While I was rotting away in a small, filthy prison cell, everyone else was moving on with their lives. Calling my mom on Christmas and hearing her crying because she missed me will always be on my mind. I started trafficking because my mother was dying and I needed the money to pay for her hospital bills. Eventually, I became so corrupted with money that I started getting not violent but aggressive. I was always looking to start a bar fight or any kind of conflict. I'm guessing because you were looking for an outlet for the pain of your mother dying. That's what I'm thinking. Only my parents and best friend stuck by me in all of this. My best friend sent me legal work pertinent to my case and even sent me money on occasion. I will always be grateful to him. When I was trafficking, making money, everyone wanted to be my friend. But when I tried calling my boys from prison, they wouldn't answer. And that's when I realized they were only my friends because I was paying their bar tab. My mother is alive and well today. Oh, good. I don't regret my actions because the money I made paid for her treatment, but I do wish things could have been different. She was depressed when I went to prison, but I'd rather her be depressed than dead. That's a tough one, right? Like, oh, I don't know how I feel about it. I honestly don't know how I feel about this. Should we keep going? Should we do another one? Maybe we should do another one. I have a few more we could do. Okay, so this one is a little different, but I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good. I haven't read it. I've just skimmed it. I was a middle class mule. So this is a Vice column that asks dealers not just what they're selling, but how they're doing. Okay. So I guess it's this guy they're calling Harry. I'm assuming they're calling him Harry. And he's not the kind of person who springs to mind when you picture a mule. For starters, he's a mild-mannered 21-year-old middle-class student from a loving family in England's West Country. His childhood was spent building dens in the woods. However, after an escalating white powder habit and meeting a gang of smugglers in Italy, he ended up smuggling cannabis and MDMA across the borders of 8 different European countries from a safe house in Spain via plane and ferry into France, Italy, Switzerland, Eastern Europe, and Scandinavia before being caught with 12 kilos of weed and spending nearly 6 months inside a Polish prison. Harry's now back in the UK, having checked out of the drug world, he says, for good. The author of this is a man by the name of Tommy Johnson. And actually, this article was put out March 6, 2020. So the author went to meet him in the village where he now lives with his family to ask him about his strange adventures. So he says, how did it start? I went on holiday to Rome last year when I was 20, and I ended up getting stranded there with no money and no way of getting home. This was because I had this all-encompassing white powder problem, which was expensive. So I spent my return fare. I was sleeping outside, stealing food from the market like Oliver Twist. Then I met this West African guy at a bar and we became friends. I explained my situation and he asked if I wanted to stay with him. He told me early on that he had these contacts who would pay good money for jobs. He didn't explicitly talk about the drugs, but it was obvious. He says at first he was only staying there because it was better than sleeping outside on the streets. Reasonable. But then the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to do one of his jobs, earn some money, and get home. I feel like that's always how it starts, right? Like, I'll just do one, I'll get myself out of this trouble, and then I'll never do it again. And then I feel like then once you get a taste of it, you need another taste and another taste, and another taste. What happened after you accepted the job? The job was not in Rome, it was in Spain, and it consisted of taking 2 kilograms of cannabis from Spain to Sweden. So the first thing that happens is I got put on a plane in northern Spain and was driven to the house where the stuff was packaged. I spent a few days in that house and they fed me well, gave me plenty of cigarettes and all that, and I was happy. I met another young guy who was running. He was 23 from Scotland. He was not like me. He had a problem. It was a drug problem. And he'd done a few runs before. He told me it was easy enough, so that was reassuring. To be honest, at that point, I was starting to find the whole thing tremendously exciting. How much were you being paid? I was promised 1,000 euros, $1,112 per kilo. That was 2,000 euros, $2,225. I think the markup from Spain to Sweden is quite large. They buy it for around 5,000 euros, $556, and it sells for something around 4,000 euros, $4,450. Okay, tell me about the smuggling process. It starts with the packaging, which takes all night. Okay, this is getting kind of interesting, I have to say. The drugs are vacuum packed into these bags, wrapped with cling film, and pressed right down. There was this guy making thick coffee. He'd make the coffee and stir it and add more grounds to the mixture until it was a syrupy paste. Then they'd smother the package in the coffee mixture, wrap it up with more cling film, and repeat. This is all to keep the dogs off track. Then it was put in one of those X-ray proof bags. They gave me a little burner phone which has all the information I need on it. Then they dropped me at the airport. The whole thing was actually less stressful than you'd think. You just check in your suitcase with the stuff in it and get on the flight. There was no moment of, oh my God, I'm crossing the scanner or anything like that. It's like taking any other flight. I probably should have been scared, but I wasn't. I felt so removed from what I was doing. It was like I was an alien. It just never felt real. When I got out of the airport for the first time at Riga in Estonia, I was met by my handler. What was he like? He's there to make sure you don't freak out and tell the police or run off with this stuff. They only send one of these guys the first couple of times. Then after they trust you, they stop doing it. So after he gets to Riga, He hops on the ferry to Stockholm with the handler. That he says somebody met them in Stockholm and he got 2,000 euros in cash off the guy that he met in a hotel, and then that was it. It all seemed way too easy. It's probably not that easy. Because I feel like if it was truly that easy, wouldn't everybody do it? Right? Why did you decide to do it again? Okay, so he goes back to the UK and he starts buying the white stuff. I was doing over 2 grams per day. That's why I wanted to go out and do it smuggling again. It's that simple. They contacted me on my burner phone. We arranged trips. I didn't see it as a big deal. I was taking so much stuff, so much white stuff at the time. It was a budgetary godsend, really. I tricked myself into thinking that I'd never have to work. I'm quite lazy, so I'll always be more attracted to easy, risky money than hard earned, risk free money. That will never, ever get you anywhere, my friend. How many times did you end up smuggling? 7 or 8 times over a 6 month period. The size of the jobs got gradually bigger as they began to trust me, from 2 kilograms to 7 kilograms to 12 kilograms. It was a lot of fun. I'd stay in nice hotels all around Europe. However, briefly, I was given pocket money on top of other fees for the job. They'd give me cash to pay for the hotels, taxis, and nights out. It does sound really nice, right? I don't think it's worth it, but he does paint a pretty little picture. What you have to realize about middle class white mules, sometimes called cleanskins, because we have no criminal record and look innocent, is that we are a real asset for these guys. No one searches us. Police don't profile us, and we're rare. They treat us like a king because they want to keep us around. We don't feel disposable as people might imagine that we do. Okay, this is true. But, and however, I actually did a story on this woman who was in this like romance scam turned, it was like something out of, did you ever see that movie Broke Down Palace? It's a really good movie, by the way, if you've never seen it. And it's like this guy, these two girls are on vacation, and this guy, this really like rich guy, comes and he like, he sweet talks them or whatever, and then he tells them that he's gonna fly them somewhere else to meet him or what, and he gives them stuff to carry with him, to bring with them. They don't know that the bags he gave them are filled with a bunch of stuff, and they end up in jail, in Taiwan, maybe Korea, something like that. Well, it's basically like the real life story of this broke down palace. It's a really fucked up story. But yes, I did a video on that. If I remember, I'll link it. But point being, as I'm rambling, um, I think that normally a lot of them probably do get through, but there's always that chance that you won't. All that was what I was just trying to say. Okay. How big was the operation you were part of? It's really hard to say. I don't want to talk too much about it. I only ever interacted with those directly above me, and many of them used these fake street names. It was run by Gambian guys. However, I want to stress that the people I worked for weren't living particularly in luxurious or sordid lives. They were just doing what they had to do to get by. And the other mules you met, they came from all over Europe, almost exclusively white, between the ages of 19 to 25. Most of them were addicts, like I was, but they had built up debts with some scary people. So they either use these jobs as a way of earning fast money or to disappear out of the country. So, how did you eventually get caught? I have no idea exactly how. It happened at Warsaw, airport. When I went to pick up my bag from reclaim, it wasn't there. Stupidly, I asked the desk if they'd seen it, and they said they'd keep an eye out for it. I should have kept quiet and just left, but there we go. When I came back the next day, they found the bag with the 12 kilograms of marijuana, and that was it. I guess I didn't think they'd look inside. I guess you're not as smart as you thought you were. How long were you in prison for? Okay. I was given a 5 years. Oh, okay. I was given a 5 year suspended sentence, which is really lenient by most judicial standards, and released after 150 days in jail. I was given a state lawyer who was very reassuring and had worked on similar cases before. It was my first offense, so that's why it was a light sentence. All I could think about when I got busted was how could I hide the whole thing from my parents? You can't. Figuring that if I could maybe get back in a couple weeks or a month, they'd have no idea that I was even gone, but it didn't work out that way. Eventually, one of my friends sounded the alarm to my family that I was missing, and they got the police involved. Not that they really did much. I think they stopped looking for me after they found out I had a drug problem. I feel like I've talked about this before, but I have a real issue with if like you're missing and the police find out that you have a substance problem, they basically like give up on you. They like toss you to the wolves. They're like, oh, you have a substance abuse problem. Okay, well, you know what? We're not going to waste our time and our resources on you. What does the fuck does that have to do with anything? Granted, they could just be hiding out and getting stoned somewhere or getting high somewhere, but they could also be in a lot of trouble. And just because they have a substance abuse problem, that doesn't make them less of a person. I just have a real issue with that because I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, well, so and so is missing, but they had a substance abuse problem, so the police aren't taking this seriously. What? What? It's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. And to be completely honest with you, when police departments do that and the person is in serious trouble or could have been saved or, anything like that, police departments should be held responsible because just because have a problem with substances, that doesn't make you less of a person. That doesn't make you less important than anybody else. It just doesn't. Did you find being in a foreign prison tough? I was essentially just thrown in solitary because after they took one look at me, they must have known I wouldn't last a day with the really serious criminals. It was nice of them, and I don't think it's what would have happened in a British or American prison. Absolutely not. Well, not in America anyway. Occasionally I'd have a cellmate, but they were fine, just kept to themselves. Prison itself is just extremely monotonous. You live in this little cell about the size of a large bathroom, and you're allowed outside for 1 hour per day. But outside is just a little cage with an open roof, just big enough for you to pace around. I ended up reading a lot. I read the entire works of Shakespeare, which my mom sent me, and I made paintbrushes out of my hair, which I fixed together with condensed milk from the lunch tray. Pretty creative, I gotta tell it. If you could go back in time, would you change things? Well, I'm off the drugs now, which is good. But no, I think I needed everything to go wrong. I had this ridiculous view of life that money and opportunity would just fall into my lap. The whole thing taught me that my actions have consequences. Although I really hurt my friends and family and that upsets me, I wish I could have spared them the worry. So, what do you do for a living these days? I have a part time job in a secondhand shop, keeping it easy while I come to terms with my experiences over the last year. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Good for you, dude. Good for you. I have to say, if I have one takeaway from this, I have to say the part where he says, I wouldn't change anything because I needed to go through this to basically learn my lesson. It's very mature of you. It shows a lot of growth. It really truly does. And I think that everybody deserves a second chance. I do. I think no matter what, everybody deserves. No, I take that back. I'm lying. I don't think everybody. I think if you like hurt a child or, you know, stuff like that, I don't think you deserve a second chance. So I will say most people in most circumstances deserve a second chance unless you're just a absolute piece of shit. Then yeah, you don't deserve a second chance in my world. All right, guys, if you're still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet. And you'd be so inclined to because it really helps me out. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until next time, stay safe out there.